continuing to address the idea that good things happen to you when you think positively and that bad things happen to you when you think negatively, I wanted to take a look at some of the research on the matter. Before I do that, however, I would like to emphasize that any sociological or psychological research should be taken with a grain of salt. Sociological and psychological studies are often based exclusively on self-report from narrow segments of the population, namely students. There are also widespread issues with replication, but perhaps more on this another time. And I will try and go through some of these in rapid-fire fashion, highlighting main points. Barbara Held, again in her article, The Tyranny of the Positive Attitude in America, is helpful in her initial explanation of some of this literature. Analyzing the article Health Complaints, Stress, and Distress by David Watson and James Pennebaker, Held writes, people high in so-called trait negative affect, which subsumes such adverse mood states as anger, disgust, scorn, guilt, fearfulness, and depression, and includes a trait-like tendency to dwell on one's own failures and shortcomings, to be less satisfied and more neurotic, and to focus on the negative side of others and the world in general, are no less healthy when health is measured objectively rather than by self-report than are people high in trait positive affect, which reflects such mood states as energy and enthusiasm and includes the trait-like tendency toward well-being and extroversion. In another article, Don't Worry, Be Sad, on the cognitive, motivational, and interpersonal benefits of negative mood, the authors highlight the potential adaptive function of all affective states. They note that our current cultural epoch is characterized by unilateral emphasis on the benefits of happiness. In their research, the authors found that negative affect can improve memory performance, reduce judgmental errors, improve motivation, and result in more effective interpersonal strategies. Citing one specific example, the authors write, when happy and sad participants were asked to persevere at a demanding cognitive task as long as they liked, those in negative mood persevered more. They spent more time on the task, attempted more questions, and had more correct answers. In addition, the authors note that in some circumstances, negative affect can increase perseverance and can reduce dysfunctional self-handicapping behaviors. The authors conclude that the unrelenting pursuit of happiness may often be self-defeating, and a more balanced assessment of the costs and benefits of positive and negative affect is long overdue in professional practice and in popular culture as well. As outlined in the article, Does Childhood Personality Predict Longevity? Conscientiousness in childhood was related to survival in middle age, but contrary to expectation, cheerfulness, or optimism and a sense of humor, was inversely related to longevity. In his book, Opening Up: The Healing Power of Expressing Emotions, psychologist James Pennebaker writes that excessive holding back of thoughts, feeling, and behaviors can place people at risk for both major and minor diseases. Confronting our deepest thoughts and feelings can have remarkable short and long-term health benefits. Confession, whether by writing or talking, can neutralize many of the problems of inhibition. Authors of the Canadian article Positive Self-Statements, Power for Some, Peril for Others argue that injunctions to thinking positively are pervasive in North America. Self-help books, television shows, and loved ones advise thinking positively when one faces a challenge or is unhappy. Yet the present results suggest that for certain people, positive self-statements may be not only ineffective, but actually detrimental. These authors specifically highlight how repeating positive self-statements may benefit certain people, but backfire for the very people who need them the most, and that positive self-statements seem to provide a boost only to people with high self-esteem. In the article, When Feeling Bad Can Be Good, Mixed Emotions Benefit Physical Health Across Adulthood, researchers examine the co-activation model of health, which posits that maintaining a mix of positive and negative emotions enhances physical health. In a meta-analysis, a higher standard research method, the researchers found that people who engage in repression as a coping strategy have a higher risk of suffering from cancer and cardiovascular diseases. In conclusion, the authors propose a strategy of taking the good with the bad, in which people find a way to feel good when feeling bad. In their framework, allowing for positive affect to be experienced concurrently with negative affect prompts individuals to face negative events in life and gain insight into them. Addressing research issues in this area as a whole, Tracy J. Main writes in the article Negative Affect and Health, the importance of being earnest, that future research must understand the parameters of emotion that positively and negatively impact health. It must help define when and how negative emotions become too much of a good thing. It must find ways to help individuals balance affect, which may entail down-regulating specific negative effects in some individuals and up-regulating them in others. Affect, cognition, and behavior work in concert, not only responding to the environment, but actively shaping our world and our perceptions of it, with immediate and long-term effects on health. Leaving research approaches and findings behind to take a more broad view, Laura A. King writes in the article, The Hard Road to the Good Life, the Happy, Mature Person That. Another pitfall of focusing on positive emotional experience as definitive of the good life is the tendency to view any negative emotion as problematic. Thus, the experience of distress, regret, and disappointment are often viewed as negative experiences, certainly to be avoided. How realistic is it to expect that adults will weather all of life's storms with nary a regret? Yet the focus on the maximization of positive affect and the minimization of negative affect has led to a view of the happy person as a well-defended fortress, invulnerable to the vicissitudes of life. Perhaps focusing so much on subjective well-being, we have missed the somewhat more ambivalent truth of the good life. On a basic level, people who latch onto this idea that they just need to be positive are blinding themselves to the nuances of life. Put another way, just be positive runs counter to any healthy view of emotional regulation. On a cultural level, this tyranny of the positive attitude is just another way we pull each other down. While the likes of Oprah argue that we are responsible for our own lives, that the power of positivity allows us to have absolute and total control of our lives and our environment, this is put in practice to deny our responsibility to each other as neighbors, friends, family, and loved ones. And I'll leave it off there until next time.